The ambush. The brains of the 5 Zorgons splattered over the walls of the once sterile hallway as Captain John Adams's plasma repeater reduced their insectoid skulls to smoldering gore. Adams stormed forward, armored boots stomping on twitching alien limbs, while stepping over the charred remains of their still-smoking headless bodies. He didn't have time to waste. This was their chance to seize a Zorgon ship and finally take the fight to the enemy. For 4 decades, the Zorgons had been the terror of human-controlled space, never making their motives clear as they raided colonies, abducted innocent civilians, and struck ADF vessels with hit-and-run attacks before slinking back to their hives. Despite their best efforts and sacrifices, the EDF had never landed a decisive blow, always on guard, always under siege. Humanity was being blowed dry. Now, at the edge of human territory aboard the EDF Indomitable, Adams and his squad had ambushed a lone Zorgon corvette. In minutes, his troops would finish sweeping the enemy ship. If they could commandeer it and escape, it would give humanity a way to finally track the alien menace back to their lairs and end their reign of terror. This was the closest they had ever been. Failure was unacceptable. If the Zorgons escaped, the abductions and attacks would continue until humanity was decimated or enslaved. This was their one shot. Adams gripped his rifle tight and continued down the gore-slicked hallway. At the end lay the bridge where they could turn this alien killing machine against its creators. They had to seize this ship intact or humanity would never recover. Adams kicked aside a still-twitching Zorgon corpse as he reached the bridge of the alien vessel. His heart pounded in his ears, nearly drowning out the whine of the plasma repeater cooling down from the slaughter he had just unleashed. This was it. Seizing this Zorgon ship was humanity's best shot at finally gaining the upper hand. He slammed his fist on the door control panel, and the sleek metal door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Adams burst onto the bridge, rifle at the ready, expecting heavy resistance, but the large chamber was empty save for the eerie glow of holographic displays. "Bridge is clear," Adams reported over the comms. "Sweep the rest of the ship and prepare tow." An urgent message cut him off, blaring over the ship's speakers. "This is New Hope Colony. We are under attack by a massive Zorgon fleet. They've broken through our orbital defenses. Ground forces are being overwhelmed. They're killing everyone. We need immediate assistance. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us." The transmission dissolved into static and the sound of distant plasma fire before cutting out. Adams's blood ran cold. The Zorgons had never launched an assault of this scale before. They were making a play to establish a foothold right in human territory, and New Hope Colony was just the beginning. He opened a channel back to the Indomitable. "Captain Adams to Indomitable. We've secured the Zorgon vessel, but just intercepted a distress call from New Hope. The colony is under heavy assault by a Zorgon fleet. They're already on the ground and slaughtering civilians." There was a pause before the reply came. "Understood, Captain. We'll recall the boarding parties and set a course for New Hope immediately. We'll hit them with everything we've got." "Negative, Indomitable," Adams countered. "We can't let this ship slip away. It's our only chance to track them back to their hives. You proceed to New Hope at best speed. We'll follow in this corvette once we get it underway." "But sir, you'll be outnumbered and outgunned if you go in alone. Let us—" "That's an order, Lieutenant," Adams barked. "Get to New Hope and save as many colonists as you can. Make those bugs pay for every inch of ground. We'll be right behind you. Give 'em hell." Adams out. He switched off the comms and turned to his squad, who were filing onto the bridge. "You heard the distress call. The Zorgons are hitting New Hope with everything they've got, trying to get a foothold to strike deeper into our territory. Well, we're not going to let that happen." Adams gestured to the alien controls. "Jax, Kimura, get this bird in the air. The Indomitable will head to New Hope and do what they can, but they'll be outnumbered and facing heavy ground forces." He slammed a fresh power cell into his plasma repeater. "So we're going to commandeer this flying roach motel and then we're going to ride it straight into the heart of that Zorgan fleet. Hit them from behind while they're busy buzzing New Hope. Grim determination spread across the faces of his squad. They knew this was a desperate play, but what choice did they have? If the Zorgans gained even a single foothold, more systems would fall, more innocent blood would be shed. They had to act. As the alien ship hummed to life around them, Adam stared out the viewscreen at the stars streaking by. He thought of the colonists on New Hope, facing down plasma fire and chittering hordes of insectoid nightmares. Help was coming. They just had to hold out a little longer. Then the comms crackled again. It was the Indomitable. "Captain, we've lost contact with New Hope's ground teams. Last transmissions indicate the Zorgans have overrun their defenses and are sweeping the colony." There was a heavy pause. "They're wiping out everyone they find. No prisoners, no mercy." Adams's grip tightened on his rifle until his knuckles whitened. Jax looked up from the navigational controls, his face a mix of horror and hatred. "No mercy," Adams growled. "Well, that's just fine, because we're all out of mercy too. It's time someone gave the Zorgans a taste of human vengeance." The stars outside the viewscreen blurred into streaks of light as the captured Zorgan ship leaped into FTL, racing towards the besieged colony and the waiting enemy fleet. There would be no mercy. Not anymore. The Zorgans had sound the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. The descent. The captured Zorgan ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of the New Hope system. Adam stared out the viewscreen in horror at the scene before him. The once thriving colony was now a smoldering ruin, its atmosphere choked with acrid smoke and debris. The twisted wreckage of EDF defense platforms and ships littered the void, still blowing from the heat of their destruction, and swarming over it all like locusts were the Zorgan ships, dozens of them, their chitinous hulls gleaming in the light of the system's sun. They buzzed around the ravaged colony, disgorging more troops and bombing any pockets of resistance into oblivion. Adams's hands clenched into fists, his whole body shaking with barely contained rage. They were too late. The colony was already lost, but there were still Zorgans left to kill. He turned to his crew, his eyes hard as steel. "Jax, bring weapons online. Kimura, get me a target lock on the nearest bug. It's time we showed these bastards what happens when you piss off the human race." The crew leaped to their stations, their faces grim but determined. They had all lost friends and loved ones to the Zorgans. Now it was time for payback. Adam strode to the command chair and sat down, his fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls. The Zorgan language was like nothing he had ever seen, but the stolen translation matrix was already working, the alien glyphs morphing into readable text. "Weapons hot," Jax reported, his voice tight with anticipation. "Main cannon locked and loaded." "Good," Adams growled. "Fire when ready." The Zorgan ship shuddered as its main gun unleashed a searing beam of plasma, the shot lancing out across the void and spearing a Zorgan frigate amidships. The enemy vessel crumpled like a tin can, its hull peeling open and spilling burnt corpses into space. The Zorgan fleet reacted instantly, a dozen ships peeling off to face this new threat. Adams grinned wolfishly as plasma fire began to slam into their shields. The hijacked ship rocked and shuddered but held firm. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "Keep our guns on target." Jax and Kimura worked furiously, their hands flying over the controls as they wove the ship through the enemy fire, all while keeping their own weapons trained on the Zorgan fleet. The main cannon fired again and again, each shot claiming another enemy ship. But for every ship they destroyed, two more took its place. The Zorgans were swarming like angry hornets, their plasma fire growing more intense by the second. An explosion rocked the ship, sparks cascading from overloaded consoles. "Shields at 50%, Kimura shouted over the din of battle. "We can't take much more of this." Adams gritted his teeth. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but he refused to give up. Not while there was still a chance they could hurt the enemy. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life. It was a transmission from the Indomitable. Captain Adams, this is the Indomitable. We're inbound to your position with a full EDF battle group. ETA 15 minutes. Just hold on a little longer. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the news. They fought with renewed vigor, the ship's guns blazing as they continued to tear into the enemy fleet. The Zorgans pressed their attack, but the human defenders held their ground, refusing to give an inch. Relief flooded through Adams. Reinforcements were coming. They just had to survive until then. He turned to his crew, a fierce grin spreading across his face. You heard them, people. Hold the line. Reinforcements are on their way. Let's give them hell until they get here. Minutes passed like hours, each one a desperate struggle to stay alive. The ship shook and shuddered under the constant barrage, alarms blaring as systems failed and hull breaches were sealed by emergency bulkheads. Adams stayed at his post, directing the battle with a calm determination that belied the chaos around him. He had faced death before, but this was different. This was a fight for the survival of his species. Finally, the stars outside the viewscreen shimmered, and a fleet of ADF warships dropped out of FTL, their guns blazing as they joined the fray. The Zorgan fleet, caught between the human reinforcements and the hijacked ship, faltered. Adams seized the moment. All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy flagship, he ordered over the cones. Let's cut the head off this snake. The EDF fleet responded with a coordinated barrage, their plasma cannons and railguns tearing into the massive Zorgan command ship. The alien vessel shuddered under the assault, its hull splintering and cracking. Finally, with a titanic explosion, it disintegrated, the shockwave ripping through the enemy fleet. The surviving Zorgan ships, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat, their formations disintegrating as they fled the battlefield. The EDF fleet pursued, picking off the stragglers and driving the invaders from the system. Adams slumped back in his chair, his body itching from the strain of the battle. They had done it. The colony was lost, but the Zorgan fleet had been shattered, their attempt to establish a foothold in human space thwarted. It was a hard-won victory, but a victory nonetheless. As the ship limped back to the remains of the colony, Adams allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The Zorgans had underestimated humanity's resolve, and they had paid the price. But the war was far from over. This battle was just the beginning. There would be many more before the galaxy was free of the alien scourge. Adams stared out at the wreckage of New Hope, his heart heavy with the loss. But he knew one thing for certain: as long as there were humans left to fight, the Zorgans would never truly win. They had sown the wind, now they would reap the whirlwind. The rescue. As the Zorgan fleet retreated and the EDF of reinforcements secured the area, Adams turned his attention back to the ruined colony below. New Hope was a wasteland, its cities reduced to rubble and its fields scorched and barren. But there were still survivors, pockets of resistance that had managed to hold out against the alien onslaught. "Jax, get us down there," Adams ordered. "We need to find any survivors and get them out of here. The battle may be won, but the war is far from over." The Zorgan ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, its engines straining as it maneuvered through the thick smoke and debris. Adams and his squad geared up, checking their weapons and armor one last time before the ship touched down. As the ramp lowered, Adams led his team out into the devastated landscape. The air was thick with the stench of burning flesh and the acrid tang of plasma residue. Bodies, both human and Zorgan, lay strewn across the ground, their twisted forms a grim testament to the brutality of the battle. "Fan out," Adams ordered. "Find any survivors and bring them back here. And keep an eye out for any stragglers. The Zorgans may be retreating, but that doesn't mean they're gone." The squad moved out, their eyes scanning the rubble for any signs of life. Adams moved with them, his rifle at the ready. He had been through hell and back in this war, but this was different. This was his home, his people, and he would do whatever it took to protect them. As they searched, they found pockets of survivors, huddled in makeshift shelters and hidden in the ruins. Many were wounded, their faces gaunt and hollow from days of fighting and hiding. Adams and his team helped them to the ship, giving them water and medical aid as they went. "Captain, over here," one of his men called. Adams hurried over, his heart pounding. The soldier was kneeling beside a makeshift barricade where a group of colonists was huddled. Among them was a young woman, her face streaked with dirt and blood. She looked up at Adams with wide, fearful eyes. "Please help us," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The Zorgans, they took my brother. They took him and the others to their ship. I don't know if they're still alive, but please, you have to save them." Adams's jaw tightened. The Zorgans were known for their cruel experiments on captives, using them for twisted scientific purposes or worse. He couldn't leave them to that fate. "Don't worry," he said, his voice firm. "We'll get them back. I promise." He turned to his squad. "Jax, Kimura, stay here and help the survivors. The rest of you with me. We're going to hit that Zorgan ship and get those people out of there." The team moved out, their determination steeling their nerves. They made their way to the enemy ship, which was still smoking from the battle. Adams led the charge, his plasma repeater blazing as they stormed the entrance. Inside, the ship was a labyrinth of dark corridors and alien technology. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the chittering of Zorgan voices. Adams moved quickly, his team close behind. They encountered pockets of resistance, but their training and determination carried them through. Finally, they reached the holding cells. The sight that greeted them was one of horror. Humans, many of them children, were crammed into tiny, filthy cells, their faces pale and gaunt. Adams felt a surge of rage and sorrow, but he pushed it down. There would be time for grief later. Now he had to save them. "Get these people out of here," he ordered. "Move." His team sprang into action, breaking open the cells and helping the captives to their feet. The children clung to their rescuers, their eyes wide with fear and hope. Adams led them back through the ship, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. They had to make it out. They had to. As they reached the exit, a group of Zorgan soldiers appeared, their weapons raised. Adams's team opened fire, cutting down the aliens in a hail of plasma. The captives screamed, but Adams kept them moving, his voice a steady, calming presence. "Keep going. We're almost there." Finally, they burst out into the open air. The Zorgan ship was surrounded by HFY soldiers, their guns trained on the entrance. Adams let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had made it. "Get them to the medics," he ordered. "Make sure they're taken care of." As the captives were led away, Adams turned to his team. They were battered and bruised, but alive. They had done it. They had saved them. "Good work, everyone," he said, his voice filled with pride. "We did it." The team cheered, their spirits lifted by the victory. They had faced the enemy and won, but more importantly, they had saved lives. It was a small victory in a long and brutal war, but it was a victory nonetheless. As they looked out over the ruined colony, Adams knew there was still much to be done. The Zorgans were still out there, and the war was far from over. But for now, they had won a battle, and that was enough. He turned to his team, a fierce determination in his eyes. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. We will fight, and we will win. For humanity." The counterattack. As the HFY fleet regrouped and the survivors of New Hope were evacuated, Adams and his team were summoned to the Indomitable's briefing room. The air was thick with tension as they gathered around the holographic display, which showed the latest intelligence on Zorgan movements. Captain Mason, the commander of the Indomitable, addressed them. "We've received reports that the Zorgans are massing a fleet at their forward base in the Nebula system. This is our chance to hit them where it hurts and cripple their operations. But we need to act fast." Adams nodded, his mind already racing with plans. The Nebula system was deep in enemy territory, a stronghold that had eluded EDF forces for years. But if they could strike now, while the Zorgans were reeling from their defeat at New Hope, they might just have a chance. "We'll need a diversion," Adams said. "Something to draw their forces away from the base while we move in and strike at their command center." Mason nodded. "Agreed. We've already mobilized a task force to hit their supply lines and draw their attention. Meanwhile, you'll lead a strike team to infiltrate the base and take out their command structure." Adams's team exchanged determined glances. This was it. The chance they had been waiting for. They had proven their mettle at New Hope. Now it was time to take the fight to the enemy. "Let's gear up," Adams said, his voice steely with resolve. "We leave in an hour." As the task force launched its diversionary attacks, Adams and his team boarded a stealth ship, slipping past Zorgan patrols and into the heart of enemy territory. The nebula system loomed ahead, its swirling gases and asteroid fields a perfect hiding place for the Zorgan fleet. The ship touched down on a barren asteroid, its cloaking systems hiding it from enemy sensors. Adams and his team disembarked, their weapons and equipment ready for the mission ahead. They moved swiftly and silently, navigating the treacherous terrain toward the Zorgan base. The base was a sprawling complex, its alien architecture a stark contrast to the harsh landscape. Zorgan soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their eyes scanning for any signs of intruders. But Adams and his team were ghosts, slipping past the guards and into the heart of the base. Inside, they moved with precision, taking out guards and sabotaging key systems as they went. Their objective was the command center, where the Zorgan leadership coordinated their operations. It was heavily guarded, but Adams had a plan. "Kimura, plant charges on those support beams," he ordered. "We'll bring the whole structure down if we have to." As Kimura set the explosives, Adams and the rest of the team prepared for the assault. They moved into position, their weapons ready. With a nod from Adams, Kimura detonated the charges, the explosion ripping through the base and sending debris flying. The Zorgan guards were thrown into chaos, their formations breaking as they scrambled to respond. Adams's team moved in, their guns blazing as they cut through the defenders. They reached the command center, breaching the doors and storming inside. The Zorgan commanders were caught off guard, their eyes wide with shock as the humans burst in. Adams wasted no time, his plasma repeater tearing through the aliens with deadly precision. The command center was a flurry of activity, but his team was relentless, cutting down the Zorgans and securing the room. With the command center secured, Adams accessed the base's systems, downloading critical intelligence and sending a signal to the EDF fleet. "This is Adams. The base is ours. Send in the reinforcements." As the EDF ships converged on the nebula system, the Zorgan fleet was thrown into disarray. Their command structure was shattered, their forces in chaos. The EDF took full advantage, launching a coordinated assault that overwhelmed the enemy and secured the system. Adams and his team watched from the command center, their faces grim but satisfied. They had struck a major blow against the Zorgans, crippling their operations and giving humanity a fighting chance. As the EDF reinforcements secured the base, Adams knew this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, but they had taken a critical step toward victory. They had shown the Zorgans that humanity would not back down, that they would fight for their survival and their future. And with each victory, they grew stronger, more determined. The Zorgans had sound the wind, now they would reap the whirlwind. The revelation. With the nebula system secured and the Zorgan base in EDF hands, the focus shifted to analyzing the intelligence gathered from the command center. Adams and his team were summoned back to the Indomitable for a debriefing, where Captain Mason and a group of high-ranking officers awaited them. "Excellent work, Adams," Mason said as they entered the briefing room. "Thanks to your efforts, we've dealt a significant blow to the Zorgans. But we've also uncovered something disturbing." Adams's brow furrowed. "What is it, sir?" Mason activated the holographic display, revealing a series of alien symbols and diagrams. Our analysts have been decrypting the data you recovered. It appears the Zorgans were conducting experiments on human captives, trying to unlock something they call the key. We don't know what it is yet, but it seems to be of critical importance to them. The key? Adams repeated, a sense of unease settling over him. What do they want with it? We're not sure, Mason admitted. But whatever it is, it's vital to their plans. We need to find out what it is and stop them. As the debriefing continued, the team pored over the intelligence, trying to piece together the puzzle. The data was fragmented, but it pointed to a facility deep within Zorgan space, a place known only as the Nexus. It was heavily fortified, a veritable fortress, but if the key was there, they had to find it. We'll need to infiltrate the Nexus, Adams said, his voice determined. Find out what they're up to and stop them. Whatever it takes. Mason nodded. Agreed. We'll assemble a task force. Adams, you'll lead the mission. Time is of the essence. As the team prepared for their next mission, the weight of their task settled over them. The fate of humanity could hinge on their success. They had faced the Zorgans in battle, but this was something different, something darker. But they were ready. They had fought and bled for their people, and they would do it again. They would uncover the truth and stop the Zorgans, no matter the cost. The war was far from over, but the tide was turning, and with each battle, humanity moved closer to victory. They had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. The infiltration, the journey to the Nexus was long and perilous, taking the team deep into enemy territory. The stealth ship they had commandeered was their only means of getting close without detection, and every moment was a test of their nerves. As they approached the massive Zorgan facility, its dark spires jutting into the void, Adams couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding. The key, whatever it was, held immense power. They had to stop the Zorgans from unlocking it, but the cost of failure was unimaginable. All right, team, Adams said, his voice steady. This is it. We've got one shot at this. Let's make it count. They donned their gear and prepared for the mission ahead. The plan was to infiltrate the facility, locate the research labs, and find out what the key was. Then they would destroy it and escape before the Zorgans could react. The ship slipped through the facility's defenses, landing in a hidden alcove. Adams and his team disembarked, moving swiftly and silently through the dark corridors. The air was thick with tension, every shadow a potential threat. As they moved deeper into the facility, they encountered pockets of resistance. Zorgan soldiers patrolled the halls, but Adams's team was a well-oiled machine, taking them out with precision and efficiency. They reached the research labs, where the true horror of the Zorgans' experiments was revealed. Human captives were strapped to tables, their bodies connected to strange machines that hummed with alien energy. The key, it seemed, was not a physical object, but a process, a means of unlocking hidden potential within the human genome. My God, Kimura whispered, her voice filled with horror. They're using people as lab rats. Adams's jaw tightened. We have to stop this. Now. They set charges on the machines, preparing to destroy the labs and end the experiments. But as they worked, an alarm blared, and the facility was thrown into chaos. We've been detected, Jack said, his voice urgent. We need to move now. They raced through the facility, fighting their way through waves of Zorgan soldiers. The charges detonated behind them, the explosion shaking the walls and sending debris flying. As they neared the exit, a massive Zorgan commander blocked their path, its eyes burning with fury. Adams stepped forward, his plasma repeater at the ready. Go, he ordered his team. I'll hold it off. Captain, no, Kimura protested. We can take it together. That's an order, Adams said, his voice firm. Get out of here. That's an order. Reluctantly, the team moved toward the exit, their eyes filled with determination and sorrow. Adams faced the Zorgan commander, his heart pounding with resolve. This was it. The final stand. The commander lunged, its claws slashing through the air. Adams fired, his plasma repeater lighting up the corridor. The battle was fierce, but Adams fought with everything he had, driven by the need to protect his team and his species. Finally, with a final desperate shot, he brought the commander down. Breathing heavily, he staggered to his feet, his body itching with pain. He had done it. They had done it. He made his way to the exit, where his team was waiting. They helped him aboard the ship, their faces filled with relief and admiration. They had succeeded, but at great cost. As the ship lifted off, Adams looked back at the burning facility. The Zorgans had been dealt a heavy blow, but the war was far from over. They had uncovered a dark secret, one that could change the course of the conflict. But they would face it together. They had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. The aftermath. With the Nexus destroyed and the truth about the key revealed, the EDF fleet regrouped, preparing for the next phase of the war. Adams and his team were hailed as heroes, their bravery and determination a beacon of hope for humanity. But the revelations from the Nexus weighed heavily on their minds. The Zorgans' experiments had unlocked something within the human genome, something that could potentially turn the tide of the war. The key, it seemed, was a latent power within humanity, a power the Zorgans sought to harness for their own ends. As the team debriefed for the EDF leadership, plans were made to research this newfound potential. Scientists and military strategists worked together, exploring ways to unlock and control this power for the defense of Earth. "We have a long road ahead," Captain Mason said, his voice filled with resolve. "But we now have a fighting chance. Thanks to your efforts, we can turn the tide." Adams nodded, his face set with determination. "We'll do whatever it takes. For humanity." As the war raged on, the EDF launched a series of counteroffensives, striking at the heart of Zorgan territory. With the knowledge gained from the key, they developed new strategies and technologies, turning the tide in their favor. Adams and his team continued to fight, their resolve unwavering. They had seen the horrors of the Zorgan war machine, but they had also seen the strength and resilience of humanity. They fought not just for survival, but for a future free from tyranny and oppression. And as the battles raged on, they held on to hope. Hope that one day they would emerge victorious. Hope that their sacrifices would pave the way for a brighter future. They had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. In the end, it was not just their strength or their technology that won the war, but their spirit. The human spirit, unyielding and indomitable, rose to meet the challenge. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, united in their fight for freedom. The war with the Zorgans was long and brutal, but humanity prevailed. And as they rebuilt their world, they remembered the lessons learned and the heroes who had fought and sacrificed. They had sown the wind. Now they would reap the whirlwind. And in doing so, they had secured their place in the stars.